Hello everyone, this is Adrian here, and if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook, like the page. Now, I want to talk about crisis management. All these topics are on crisis management. How to predict when a crisis is going to happen. You know, I haven't really given that much thought, but what I'm going to tell you would really be my own experience and my own opinion. Now, my experience may not be the same as yours, but the only thing you really know is your experience. Some people say, well, pardon me for my experience. Well, my experience is all I really know. You can read about other people's experiences and that'll add to your knowledge. Nothing wrong with that. All right, how can you predict? In the Bible, when there's a birth of a spiritual leader like Moses and Jesus, they killed all the babies. You know how many babies were killed, aborted before this crisis? 10 million from January to April. Yeah, those are statistics. And nobody's saying anything about that. However, I believe because of the sins of mankind, this is why there's this death cycle. There's a life cycle. There's a law of the spirit of life. There's a law of sin and death. Now, I made a personal survey of my life. You know, the worst one is the first one. And then you're more prepared the second time. Or depends on how you live your life. If you're living your life in obedience to God, you'll be able to survive and hold up in a crisis. However, if you're inexperienced, unprepared, you're going to be caught by surprise in a crisis. Now, the first crisis I had it when I was 18, 19 years old. The second crisis was in 1998. My father died, the business got into trouble. I used to be in the hardware business, and I've gotten totally out of business. I'm full-time for the Lord. I've tried business in my, so I know how a businessman feels. It took 22 years from crisis number 1 to crisis number 2. Now, how can I predict when crisis number 3 will come? Now, I've seen 13 years, okay? No, 18 years, it took from crisis number 1 to crisis number 2, it's like 22 years. Then the first one was like 18 years, 22 years. So I predict if there's an addition, like every 20 years, let's just say every 20 years I experience a crisis. I also notice changes every 5 years in my life and in the ministry. So I can predict a crisis by the length of time. I went from crisis number 1 to crisis number 2. This crisis is the crisis I was most prepared for. Now begin to count. How old are you? And if this is your first crisis, how old are you? Then you can predict more or less when the next one is. But what I'm all saying is this is my own opinion. So you can prepare. Live your life for God. Be prepared so you can be strong in a crisis. Amen. Amen.